A dirty kid walked into the city's most exclusive bank. "I just want to check my balance," he whispered. The millionaire banker burst into laughter, but when the screen lit up, his smile froze forever. Jameson's sneakers squeaked against the marble floor, the sound announcing poverty before he even opened his mouth. The duct tape holding the sole together left sticky marks with each step across Sterling and Ashford Private Banking's lobby. He shouldn't be here. Every instinct screamed it. But Grace's face that morning, hollow cheeks, hungry eyes asking if they'd eat today, had pushed him through those glass doors despite the terror in his chest. The air conditioning hit him like a slap. His thin shirt offered no protection against the cold. Everything screamed wealth, cream marble veined with gold, crystal chandeliers throwing rainbow light, walls of polished wood. The air smelled of leather, fresh roses, and expensive cologne, the scent of a world where people didn't worry about eviction notices or empty refrigerators. He took another step. The squeak echoed like a gunshot. Every head turned. A woman in a cream suit looked up from her phone. Her eyes traveled from his dirt-smudged face to his duct-taped shoes. She wrinkled her nose like he smelled bad. Maybe he did. The water had been shut off for 3 days. An elderly man with silver hair whispered to his companion. They both smiled. Not friendly. The kind with punchlines. Near the windows, a couple in designer sunglasses stopped talking. The woman clutched her purse closer, like a 10-year-old could threaten someone with security teams. "Can I help you?" The receptionist, Janet, her nameplate read, looked at him like he was a problem to solve, a mistake to correct. "I need to check my balance," Jameson whispered. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then laughter, sharp-edged and cruel, from behind an enormous mahogany desk at the lobby's center. Nathaniel Ashford. The name was everywhere. On the building, billboards, buses, banking for people who matter. At 42, Nathaniel looked designed to make others feel inadequate. Marble-cut jaw, dark hair with distinguished gray at the temples, whiskey-colored eyes that missed nothing. His charcoal suit cost more than Jameson's mother had earned in her last year. His gold watch served no purpose but announcing wealth. His shoes reflected the ceiling. "Janet," Nathaniel called, voice carrying with practiced authority. "Why are we allowing street children into the building? I thought we had security protocols." Street children. Not kid, children. Plural. Interchangeable. Around the lobby, heads turned. Conversations stopped. Phone calls ended. Everyone wanted to watch. The cream suit woman moved closer. "Is that kid homeless?" she whispered, not quietly enough. "Probably begging," her companion replied. "They get bolder every year." The elderly man's son pulled out his phone. Click, click, click. Taking pictures of Jameson's humiliation. 2 security guards appeared, hands on belts, waiting. Mum's voice echoed in Jameson's head. "You're as good as anyone, mijo. Don't let them make you feel small." But standing here, he'd never felt smaller. "I have an account," he said, voice shaking. "I just want to check my balance." The laughter rippled through the lobby like a wave. "An account!" The cream suit woman laughed. "Did you hear that? Maybe a children's savings account," someone suggested. "With $50 from birthday money? Or he found a checkbook in the trash." The elderly man's son offered loudly. Nathaniel stood, over 6 feet, moving with confidence that came from never being told no. He walked around his desk slowly, deliberately, performing for his audience. He stopped 6 feet away, close enough to tower, far enough to avoid smelling poverty. His nose wrinkled. "What's your name, boy?" Not young man, not son. Boy. "Jameson Rodriguez." "Rodriguez." Nathaniel rolled the name like tasting something unpleasant. "Tell me, what makes you think you belong in Sterling and Ashford Private Banking? Our clients are Fortune 500 CEOs, tech moguls, old money families wealthy since before this country was founded." He paused, eyes traveling deliberately from Jameson's face to his shoes and back. Calculated, designed to make him aware of every flaw. "Our clients don't arrive covered in street grime, wearing donation bin rejects. So why are you really here?" Jameson pulled out the envelope. His mother's careful handwriting on front. Letters she'd practiced for hours, ashamed of her education. "I have a card. I have an account." Nathaniel's eyes flickered to the envelope. Surprise, gone in an instant. A card. This should be fascinating. He held out his hand. Let me see it. The envelope felt sacred, one of the last things Mom had touched. Her handwriting representing hours of practice by candlelight when they couldn't afford electricity. I don't have all day, Nathaniel snapped. Show me or admit you're lying. With shaking hands, Jameson pulled out the black metal card. Heavy, real. The Sterling and Ashford logo embossed in silver. His name engraved in elegant letters. Nathaniel took it, eyebrows rising slightly. It looks authentic, though you can buy convincing fakes online for under $100. It's not fake. My mom got it before she... His voice broke. Before she what? Nathaniel pressed, almost cruel. Before she died. The lobby quieted. Heavier silence. Some shifted uncomfortably. Even the cream-suit woman's smile faltered. But Nathaniel grew harder. What did your mother do for a living? What career allowed her to open an account here? Our minimum balance is $5 million. It was a trap. Jameson heard it in the phrasing, saw it in the slight smile. He thought about Mom's hands. Rough and red from chemicals, scarred from broken glass. Hands that held him when he cried, braided Grace's hair every morning, packed lunches from whatever food she could find. She cleaned offices, Jameson said, forcing himself straighter. 3 jobs, sometimes 4. She cleaned this building. At night, after people like you went home. The cream-suit woman barked laughter. The elderly man's son shook his head. The couple exchanged knowing looks. Nathaniel's smile widened. She cleaned offices. How noble. I'm sure she worked very hard scrubbing toilets and emptying trash. His voice dripped sarcasm. But that doesn't explain how a cleaning woman could afford our $5 million minimum. He addressed the crowd now. I think you found this card. Maybe your mother did work here. We employ cleaning crews. Maybe she found it in an office. Being a woman of limited means and probably limited education, she didn't understand keeping it was theft. That's not what happened, Jameson said weakly. The alternative is she was involved in something illegal. Drug money, money laundering, fraud. Those are the only ways someone in her position could access this wealth. My mother wasn't a criminal, Jameson's voice cracked. She was good, the best person I knew. She worked herself to death for me and my sister, and you don't get to. Tears came, hot and fast and humiliating. His whole body shook. Nathaniel watched with something like satisfaction. Around the lobby, some looked uncomfortable. Others still smiled. The cream-suit woman texted someone. The son kept taking pictures. Let me give you advice, son, Nathaniel said, leaning closer. The world isn't fair. Some people are born to wealth and privilege. Some to poverty and struggle. Your mother understood that. She knew what she was. She knew her place. The sooner you accept what you are, the easier your life will be. What you are. Not who. What? Jameson thought about Mom's trembling hands toward the end. Cancer eating her bones. Still braiding Grace's hair at 4 a.m. when she could barely stand. Smiling 2 days before death. Saying she'd made sure everything would be okay. She'd cried in the bathroom at night, muffling sounds with a towel so they wouldn't hear, but never stopped working, never stopped fighting. And this man was saying she knew her place, understood what she was, like she'd been nothing. Something inside Jameson shifted. Grief transformed into something sharper, hotter, burning away fear and shame. His tears stopped, hands steadied. He looked Nathaniel directly in the eyes. Check the account, Jameson said, voice clear, strong. Stop talking and check the account. Nathaniel's smile faltered. Just for a second. Something uncertain flickered in his eyes. Very well. He walked to his desk, sat down, slid the card through the reader. Fingers flew across the keyboard. The lobby held its breath. Jameson heard the fountain. Someone shifting. His own heartbeat, loud and steady. Nathaniel's fingers stopped. His eyes locked on the screen. Every ounce of color drained from his face. That's not possible, he whispered. What is it? Janet asked, moving closer. Is there a problem? Nathaniel stared like the screen had shown him gravity reversed. His mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Mr. Ashford? Janet's voice edged with concern. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The account is legitimate. What's the balance? Nathaniel's eyes met Jameson's. Pure, absolute shock. The balance is $63,472,816. Silence so profound. Jameson heard blood rushing in his ears. Did you say million? The cream suit woman asked, voice small. And 53 cents, Nathaniel added, still staring. The elderly man stood so fast his chair scraped loudly. Impossible. He's a child. Look at him. The system doesn't lie, Nathaniel said mechanically. Account opened 8 months ago. Funds deposited from verified life insurance settlement. All taxes paid. Primary account holder, Jameson Miguel Rodriguez, age 10. Janet checked her tablet with shaking hands. Her face transformed. Confusion to disbelief to shock. Confirmed, she said weakly. Account legitimate. Balance accurate. One of our largest privately held accounts. The diamond earrings woman covered her mouth. The elderly man's son went pale, phone forgotten. The designer sunglasses couple removed their glasses entirely. Even security guards froze halfway across the lobby. $63 million. Jameson remembered Mom 2 weeks before death, barely able to sit up. There's enough. Enough for you and Grace to never worry. For school, a home. Everything I couldn't give you. You just have to be brave enough to claim it. He'd thought she meant a few thousand. Maybe 10,000 at most. Never this. Where did this money come from? Nathaniel demanded, voice sharp with desperation. This doesn't materialize from nowhere. Is your family involved in something illegal? Drug money? Laundering? My mom wasn't a criminal, Jameson said, voice stronger than since entering. She was a cleaning lady who worked 4 jobs and saved every penny. She paid into life insurance for over 10 years without missing a payment. She planned for her children's future while dying. She was worth more than everyone in this room combined. The last sentence echoed off marble and ceiling. No one laughed. I need to speak with my supervisor, Nathaniel said, standing with jerky movements. This requires verification. Investigation. Mr. Ashford. The voice came from the elevators. Deep. Quiet. Carrying absolute authority. Everyone turned. Jonathan Matthews stood there. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't staring at Jameson with shock. He was looking at Nathaniel with profound disappointment. Jonathan, early 60s, silver hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, had been with the bank over 30 years. His simple gray suit somehow looked more dignified than Nathaniel's expensive one. Jonathan, I'm handling a sensitive situation, Nathaniel started. You're harassing a child, Jonathan interrupted quietly. Words soft but carrying like thunder. In front of clients. Over a legitimate account. An account from a 10-year-old whose mother sacrificed everything for his future. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I was here when Elena Rodriguez opened this account. I helped her set it up. I watched her cry, explaining she was dying and needed her children cared for. I witnessed her sign documents with hands shaking from pain and chemotherapy. So yes, Nathaniel, I understand perfectly. You met her, Jameson whispered. Jonathan's expression softened. I did. 8 months ago. She was one of the bravest people I've ever met. He crossed the lobby. The crowd parted. When he reached Jameson, he held out his hand. My name is Jonathan Matthews. Would you like to come to my office, where you'll be treated with the respect you deserve? Jameson looked at the offered hand, at Jonathan's kind face, at Nathaniel's pale shock. Okay. As Jonathan led him toward elevators, Nathaniel found his voice. This isn't over. I want full investigation. There isn't anything to find, Jonathan said without turning. But waste your time discovering that. I'm sure the board will love hearing how you publicly humiliated a major client, a child, in front of witnesses, one of whom recorded everything. The elderly man's son quickly pocketed his phone. Elevator doors closed on Nathaniel's horrified face and the shattered assumptions of wealthy clients. Rising toward executive offices, Jameson finally breathed, really breathed. His body shook, adrenaline, shock, grief hitting at once. Are you okay? Jonathan asked gently. Jameson shook his head. Nothing was okay. The money, humiliation, the stares, none felt real. But one thing was real. His mother had done this, planned this, worked herself to death to give him and Grace a different life. And he wouldn't let anyone, not Nathaniel Ashford, not anyone, make him ashamed of that. The elevator rose silently toward the executive floors, each passing number on the display, marking the distance between two worlds. Jonathan stood quietly beside Jameson, giving him space to breathe, to process, to exist without judgment for the first time since walking into that lobby. Jameson's hands were still shaking. He couldn't make them stop. The envelope with his mother's handwriting felt heavier now, like it contained more than just paper and ink, like it held the weight of her final words, her last thoughts, her dreams for children she'd never see grow up. "The view from my office is beautiful," Jonathan said softly, breaking the silence without shattering it. "Your mother sat in the same chair you're about to sit in. She looked out those windows and told me about you and Grace, about how smart you were, how kind, how you helped her even when you didn't know she was sick." Jameson's throat tightened. "She told you about me. She was very proud of you." Jonathan's eyes were gentle behind his glasses. "She said you were going to do something important with your life, that you had a good heart in a world that would try to harden it." The elevator doors opened onto a quiet hallway. Thick carpet absorbed the sound of their footsteps. Original paintings lined the walls, not prints, but actual art worth more than most people earned in years. But Jonathan walked past them like they were invisible, focused entirely on the boy beside him. His office was at the end of the hall. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, the city spreading out below like a glittering promise. The furniture was comfortable, rather than impressive. Chairs that invited you to sit, a desk that looked used, bookshelves filled with worn volumes that had actually been read. "Please sit," Jonathan said, gesturing to a leather chair near the windows. Jameson sat. The leather was soft, worn smooth by years of use. From here he could see the building where he and Grace lived, a gray rectangle among hundreds of others, 14 blocks away, but feeling like a different universe entirely. Jonathan settled into the chair across from him, moving slowly, giving Jameson time to adjust. He didn't pull up files or start typing on his computer. He just sat there, present and patient. "Do you know what your mother did the day she came here?" Jonathan asked. Jameson shook his head. "She arrived at 6 in the morning. The bank wasn't even open yet. She waited outside for 3 hours because she'd called ahead and I'd told her I arrived early. When I found her sitting on the steps, she apologized for bothering me, apologized for taking my time. She was wearing her cleaning uniform because she'd worked the night shift and came straight here." Jonathan's voice grew thick with emotion. She had a folder with her, everything organized with colored tabs and labels in her careful handwriting. Birth certificates for you and Grace, her medical records, the life insurance policy documentation. Legal papers she'd researched and filled out herself because she couldn't afford a lawyer. Tax forms, everything perfectly in order. He paused, collecting himself. "She told me she had stage 4 cancer, that the doctors said she had months, maybe weeks, that she'd been working and saving for over a decade, paying into a life insurance policy that most people told her was a waste of money. She said she didn't care about wasting money while she was alive as long as her children would have everything after she was gone." Jameson felt tears burning behind his eyes again, but different from the humiliated tears downstairs. These came from somewhere deeper, somewhere that hurt so badly he didn't think he could bear it. "The policy was worth $70 million, Jonathan continued. "She'd started it when you were born. $25 a month, every single month for 10 years. Do you know how impossible that is when you're living in poverty? $25 is groceries. It's keeping the electricity on. It's the difference between making rent or getting evicted." "She never told me," Jameson whispered. "She didn't want you to know she was planning for her death." "She wanted you to believe everything would be okay, that she'd always be there." Jonathan pulled a tissue box closer to Jameson, setting it within easy reach. "She sat in that chair for 6 hours while we set everything up. The trust documents, the educational funds, the housing provision, the medical accounts. She had thought of everything, every possible scenario, every potential problem." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder with Jameson's name on it. "This is your complete file. She left instructions for everything. When you should get access to certain funds, what the money should be used for, conditions and guidelines to protect you from people who might try to take advantage." Jameson stared at the folder. His entire future, planned by a woman who'd known she wouldn't be there to see it. "She also left letters," Jonathan said quietly. "One for you, one for Grace, and one for whoever became your guardian. She asked me to give them to you when you were ready. I got a letter, Jameson said, touching the envelope in his pocket. With the card. That was her introduction letter, the one she wanted you to have first. Jonathan pulled another envelope from the folder. Thicker, heavier. This is the second letter. She asked me to read it with you if you wanted, or to give you privacy, whatever you needed. Jameson looked at the envelope, his mother's handwriting across the front. For my Jameson, when you know the truth. Will you stay? Jameson asked. His voice came out small, younger than his 10 years. I don't want to be alone. Of course. Jonathan handed him the envelope. Take all the time you need. Jameson's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were 3 pages, both sides covered in his mother's careful script. The paper smelled faintly of her perfume, the cheap kind from the drugstore that she'd worn on special occasions. His birthday, Grace's birthday, Christmas, when they'd pretend they could afford to celebrate. My dearest Jameson, it began, if you're reading this, it means you've been to the bank. It means you've met Jonathan, who I trust with my whole heart. It means you know about the money, and you're probably confused and scared and maybe angry that I never told you. I need you to understand something important, mijo. I didn't keep this secret because I didn't trust you. I kept it because I wanted you to have a childhood. Even if it was a hard childhood, even if we struggled, I wanted you to be a kid for as long as possible. Kids shouldn't have to know their mother is planning for her death. But now you know. Now you know that every day I went to work. Every night I came home so tired I could barely stand. I was building something for you. A foundation. A future. A chance. The money came from a life insurance policy I started when you were born. I was 19 years old, cleaning offices at night, pregnant and scared. A woman I worked with told me about life insurance. She said if anything ever happened to me, the policy would take care of my baby. I didn't have much money, but I had $25 a month, so I started paying. For 10 years, mijo. 10 years of $25 a month. Do you know how many times I almost stopped? How many times that $25 was the difference between eating or not eating, between keeping the lights on or sitting in the dark? But I never stopped, because every time I was tempted, I thought about you, about the life you deserved, about the opportunities you should have, and I made the payment. When Grace was born, I increased it to $50 a month. $50 I couldn't afford. $50 that sometimes meant I wore shoes with holes in them, that I washed my clothes in the sink to save laundromat money, that I walked miles to work instead of taking the bus. People thought I was crazy. They told me life insurance was a scam, that I was wasting money I didn't have. But I knew something they didn't. I knew I was sick. I found out about the cancer when you were 7 years old. The doctor said I should start treatment immediately. But treatment cost money we didn't have. Treatment meant missing work, and missing work meant losing our apartment. So I made a choice. I decided to work as long as I could, to save every penny, to make sure that when I was gone, you and Grace would be taken care of. I increased my life insurance again, to $75 a month, more than we spent on food some weeks. But the policy grew, mijo. It grew, and when I cashed it in to set up your trust, it was worth $70 million. I know that number doesn't mean anything to you. It's too big, too impossible. But here's what it means in real terms. It means you and Grace will never be hungry again. It means you'll never have to choose between paying rent or seeing a doctor. It means you can go to any school you want, study anything you want, become anyone you want. It means my death wasn't the end of my ability to love you and protect you. But Jameson, and this is the most important part, listen to me carefully. Money doesn't make you better than anyone else. I know what just happened downstairs. Jonathan told me he would watch the security footage, that he would protect you if anyone treated you badly. I know that man, that banker, probably said terrible things about me, about you, about where you come from. And I need you to hear this. He's wrong. You are not defined by your bank account. You are defined by your character, by your kindness, by the choices you make when no one is watching. The people who mocked you today, who looked at you like you were less than human, those people are small. They measure worth in dollars and judge value by appearances. They will never understand that the cleaning lady they never noticed was braver and stronger than they will ever be. Don't become like them, mijo. You're going to have opportunities now that most people only dream about. Good schools, nice clothes, a safe home. People will treat you differently. They'll want to be your friend because you're rich. They'll pretend they always respected you. They'll act like they never judged you for being poor. But remember who you are. Remember where you come from. Remember that I cleaned toilets so you could have a future, and there is no shame in that. There is only honor in work honestly done, in sacrifices lovingly made, in a mother doing everything in her power to give her children a better life. Be kind to people who work hard jobs. They're someone's mother or father or child. They have dreams too. They deserve respect too. Study hard. Build a good life. Help people who are struggling the way we struggled. Use this money not just to elevate yourself, but to lift others up. And most important, be happy, mijo. That's all I ever wanted. For you to be happy. For you to laugh and play and fall in love and have adventures and live a full, beautiful life. The money is a tool. Don't let it become a burden. Don't let it change who you are inside. Don't let it make you hard or cruel or dismissive of people who have less. Stay soft, Jameson. Stay kind. Stay you. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, more than all the words in all the books ever written, more than life itself. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. I'm sorry for every birthday I'll miss, every milestone I won't see, every moment of your life I won't get to share. But I'm not sorry for working myself to death to give you this chance. I'd do it again 1,000 times over, because you are my son, and you deserve everything good this world has to offer. Be brave. Be strong. Be the man I always knew you would become. With all my love, forever and always, Mama. Jameson didn't realize he was sobbing until Jonathan's hand rested gently on his shoulder. Great, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep in his chest, from the place where grief and love and loss all tangled together until he couldn't tell them apart. She knew, Jameson choked out between sobs. She knew she was dying for 3 years. 3 years, and she never told me. She kept working. She kept smiling. She kept pretending everything was fine. She was protecting you, Jonathan said softly. The way mothers do. I could have helped her. I could have. Jameson couldn't finish. Couldn't articulate the desperate wish that he could go back, could somehow save her, could trade all the money for just one more day with her. She didn't want your help, Jameson. She wanted your childhood. She wanted you to have as much normal life as possible before everything changed. Jonathan's voice was gentle but firm. That was her gift to you. Not just the money, the time. The memories of a mother who smiled even when she was in pain, who sang while she braided Grace's hair, who made your birthday special even when she had to work 3 shifts to afford a cake. Jameson clutched the letter to his chest, tears soaking the paper. His mother's words, her handwriting, the last piece of her he'd ever receive. What do I do now? He whispered. How do I live with this? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You honor her. You become the person she believed you could be. You use this foundation she built. Not just the money, but the values she taught you, to build something meaningful. I'm 10 years old. I know. And right now you need to be 10 years old. You need to grieve and heal and figure out how to keep living without her. Jonathan pulled his chair closer. But the money will be here when you're ready. The opportunities will wait. Your mother made sure of that. He opened the file folder again, pulling out documents. She set up monthly allowances for immediate needs. Housing, food, clothing, school supplies. Enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. When you turn 16, you'll get access to additional funds for a car, college preparation. At 18, more for college tuition and living expenses. At 25, full access to everything. What about Grace? Jameson asked, wiping his eyes. Everything is split equally between you. Your mother was very clear. You're a team. You take care of each other. Jonathan slid another document across. She also set up provisions for a guardian. Someone to live with you and Grace, to help raise you, to make sure you have adult supervision and support. Who? That's up to you, partially. Your mother left some suggestions, but ultimately the trust stipulates that you and Grace should have a say in who becomes your guardian. Someone you trust. Someone who will honor your mother's wishes. Jameson thought about the people in his building. Mrs. Chen from the corner store who sometimes slipped him free snacks. Mr. Alvarez who'd helped him with his homework. Mrs. Rodriguez who'd watched Grace sometimes when Mom worked nights. Good people, kind people. But none of them knew about this. None of them knew what his life had just become. "I don't know," he admitted. "You don't have to decide today. Or this week. We'll work with social services to find temporary placement while you figure things out." Jonathan pulled out another envelope. "Your mother also left this. A list of people she trusted. People she thought might be good guardians for you and Grace." Jameson took the envelope but didn't open it. He couldn't handle any more of his mother's words right now. Couldn't bear any more evidence of how thoroughly she'd planned for a future she wouldn't see. "Can I ask you something?" Jameson said quietly. "Anything. When my mom was here, sitting in this chair, setting all this up, was she scared?" Jonathan considered the question carefully. She was terrified. Not of dying. I think she'd made peace with that. But of leaving you and Grace alone. Of not being there to protect you from people like Nathaniel Ashford. Of not being able to shield you from a world that judges people by their bank accounts and their zip codes. He leaned forward, making sure Jameson heard every word. But she was also hopeful. She believed in you completely. She told me that you had a strength in you that most adults don't have. That you'd been through hard things and stayed kind. That hardship had made you compassionate instead of bitter. "I don't feel strong," Jameson whispered. "Strength isn't about not feeling scared or sad or overwhelmed," Jonathan said. "It's about feeling all those things and still getting up the next morning. Still taking care of your sister. Still trying to do the right thing even when it's hard." A soft knock interrupted them. Janet stood in the doorway, looking uncertain, guilty. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Matthews, but there's someone here to see Jameson. She says she's been looking for him all afternoon." Jameson's heart jumped. "Grace?" "A woman named Mrs. Rodriguez. She has a little girl with her." Relief and fear washed through Jameson simultaneously. Mrs. Rodriguez knew where he'd gone. She'd kept Grace safe. But now he'd have to explain, have to tell Grace about the money, have to watch their entire world change in real time. "Should I send them up?" Janet asked. Jameson looked at Jonathan, who nodded encouragingly. "Only if you're ready." Was he ready? Could he ever be ready for this? But Grace was here. Grace who'd asked him that morning if they'd eat today. Grace who needed to know that their mother had made sure they'd be okay. "Yes," Jameson said. "Send them up." Janet disappeared. Jonathan stood, moving toward his desk to give Jameson space. "I'll stay nearby if you need me, but I think this conversation should be between you, your sister, and Mrs. Rodriguez." "Thank you," Jameson said, for everything he couldn't put into words. "Your mother trusted me to help you," Jonathan said simply. "I intend to honor that trust." The elevator dinged in the hallway, small footsteps running, a familiar voice calling his name. "Jameson! Jameson!" Grace burst through the door, her braids coming loose, her face streaked with tears and worry. She crashed into him with the force of a 6-year-old's complete lack of restraint. "You were gone so long. Mrs. Rodriguez said you went to the bank and I was so scared and—" She pulled back, looking at his tear-stained face. "Are you okay? Did something bad happen?" Jameson pulled her close again, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo, the cheap kind that Mom used to buy. "No, Gracie. Nothing bad happened. Something good happened. Something Mama did for us, Mrs. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath from keeping up with Grace. She looked around the expensive office with wide eyes, clearly trying to understand what was happening. "Mijo," she said to Jameson, "what's going on? You left this morning saying you'd be gone an hour. It's been 5 hours. I was worried sick." Jameson looked at Grace's trusting face, at Mrs. Rodriguez's confused concern, at Jonathan standing quietly by the windows, giving him space but offering silent support. He thought about his mother's letter, about her instructions to stay kind, stay soft, stay himself. He thought about the money that would change everything and the responsibility that came with it. And he thought about what his mother would say if she were here. Tell them the truth. They deserve to know. "Mama left us money," Jameson said simply. "A lot of money. Enough that we'll be okay. Enough that we'll never have to worry again." Grace's eyes went wide. "How much money?" Jameson looked at Jonathan, who gave a slight nod. "Permission. Support." $63 million, Jameson said. The words hung in the air. Grace blinked. Once. Twice. "Is that more than 100? Despite everything, the grief, the fear, the overwhelming weight of it all," Jameson laughed. Actually laughed. Yes, Gracie. It's more than 100. Wow, Grace breathed. Mama must have been really good at saving. She was the best at everything, Jameson said, pulling her close again. Mrs. Rodriguez had gone pale, one hand pressed to her chest. Dios mío. 63 million? But how? Your mother. She worked so hard, but… Life insurance, Jonathan explained gently, stepping forward. Elena had been paying into a policy for over 10 years. She planned everything, made sure her children would be taken care of. Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. That woman, that beautiful, stubborn, brilliant woman. She never said anything, never asked for help, never complained. She didn't want pity, Jameson said, understanding his mother a little better with each passing moment. She wanted to handle it herself, to protect us her own way. Grace tugged on his sleeve. Does this mean we can have dinner tonight? The question, so simple, so heartbreaking, made everyone in the room go quiet. Yes, Jameson said, his voice catching. We can have dinner tonight, and tomorrow, and every day after that. Mama made sure of it. Grace smiled, the first real smile Jameson had seen on her face in weeks. Mama always keeps her promises. Yeah, Jameson whispered, looking at the letter still clutched in his hand. She always does. The temporary apartment was nothing like the place Jameson and Grace had called home. Provided by the bank while their situation was sorted out, it sat in a building with an actual doorman, elevators that worked, and windows that looked out over Central Park instead of brick walls and fire escapes. Grace stood at the window, pressing her nose against the glass like they did at stores they couldn't afford to enter. Jameson, there are trees. So many trees. I see them, Gracie. And the people down there look like ants. Tiny ants in tiny cars. Jameson tried to smile, but his face felt frozen. Everything felt frozen. They'd been here for 3 days, and he still expected to wake up in their old apartment. Still expected this to be a dream that would shatter when morning came. Mrs. Rodriguez sat on the couch, her hands folded in her lap like she was afraid to touch anything. This place is bigger than my entire apartment. The bathroom has heated floors. Heated floors, mijo. Mom would have loved the bathtub, Jameson said quietly. She always talked about taking a real bath instead of quick showers. The words hung in the air. Past tense. Would have loved. The constant reminder that she wasn't here to enjoy any of this. A knock at the door made them all jump. Jonathan had said he'd visit today, had promised to bring the list of potential guardians Elena had left. But when Jameson opened the door, Jonathan wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, late 30s maybe, with warm brown eyes and curly hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the polished professionals Jameson had seen at the bank. Jameson, Grace, Jonathan said gently. This is Dr. Rebecca Martinez. She's a social worker assigned to your case. Please call me Rebecca. The woman's smile was kind, but not pitying. I'm here to help figure out what's best for you both. Not to make decisions for you, but to make sure you have support and options. Grace peeked out from behind Jameson. Are you going to take us away? No, sweetheart. I'm here to make sure you stay together and that you're safe and happy. Rebecca crouched down to Grace's level. Your brother is doing an amazing job taking care of you, but even amazing big brothers need help sometimes. They settled in the living room. Jameson and Grace on the couch, Mrs. Rodriguez nearby, Jonathan and Rebecca in the chairs across from them. It felt like a meeting. Official. The kind where important decisions got made. I've reviewed your mother's file, Rebecca said, pulling out a folder. She was incredibly thorough. The trust she set up provides for a live-in guardian, someone to help raise you, make sure you're supported, handle the day-to-day responsibilities that 10-year-olds shouldn't have to manage alone. I can take care of Grace, Jameson said quickly. I've been doing it. I know you have, and you've done it beautifully. Rebecca's voice was gentle. But Jameson, you deserve to be a kid too. To go to school, have friends, play, do homework without worrying about paying bills or making sure there's food in the refrigerator. The trust provides a generous salary for the guardian, Jonathan added. Your mother wanted to ensure whoever took on this responsibility would be fairly compensated and could focus entirely on your well-being. Mrs. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. How much are we talking about? $75,000 a year, Jonathan said. plus full coverage of housing, food, and household expenses. Mrs. Rodriguez's hand went to her chest. Dios mío, that's more than I make in 3 years working at the bodega. Your mother left a list of people she trusted, Rebecca said, opening another folder. People she thought would be good guardians. Mrs. Rodriguez, your name is at the top. The older woman's eyes filled with tears. Elena thought of me? She wrote that you were the only person in the building who never judged her, who helped watch the children without asking for payment, who brought soup when she was sick and never asked questions about why she wouldn't go to the doctor. She was my friend, Mrs. Rodriguez whispered. She never asked for help, but I could see she was struggling. I just tried to do what I could. She noticed, she appreciated it, and she trusted you with her most precious possessions, her children. Rebecca paused. The question is whether you'd be willing to take on this responsibility. It's a huge commitment. Mrs. Rodriguez looked at Jameson and Grace. Jameson held his breath. Mrs. Rodriguez was kind, but she had her own life, her own apartment, her own routine. Why would she upend everything for 2 kids who weren't even hers? Those children are like my own grandchildren, Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. I don't have family here in New York. My daughter lives in Puerto Rico with her own kids. Elena and her babies, they became my family. If they need me, of course I'll be there. Grace launched herself off the couch and into Mrs. Rodriguez's arms. You're going to stay with us? If you'll have me, mija. Jameson felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. Not everything would change. They'd have someone who knew them, who'd known their mother, who wouldn't treat them like charity cases or meal tickets. There's one more thing, Jonathan said carefully. Nathaniel Ashford has been making inquiries. The name sent ice through Jameson's veins. What kind of inquiries? He's filed a complaint with the bank's board of directors, questioning the legitimacy of your account. He's also contacted Child Protective Services, claiming that your living situation is suspicious and that you might be victims of exploitation. That's ridiculous, Rebecca said sharply. I've reviewed everything. The trust is completely legitimate. The documentation is impeccable. And these children are exactly where they should be. I know that. You know that. But Nathaniel is well-connected and persistent. Jonathan's expression darkened. He doesn't like being wrong. More importantly, he doesn't like being embarrassed. What happened in that lobby? Everyone saw him humiliate a child who turned out to be a major client. People are talking. His reputation took a hit. So this is revenge? Jameson asked. This is damage control. If he can prove something was wrong with the account, that there was fraud or illegality, he can claim he was justified in his suspicions. Jonathan leaned forward. He can't touch the money. It's locked in a legitimate trust. But he can make your life difficult. He can drag this out, create investigations, generate negative attention. Why would he do that? Grace asked quietly. We didn't do anything to him. Because some people can't stand to be proven wrong, mija, Mrs. Rodriguez said, stroking Grace's hair. Especially when they're proven wrong by someone they think is beneath them. A phone buzzed. Rebecca checked it, her expression tightening. I need to make a call. Excuse me. She stepped into the bedroom, closing the door. Through the wall, Jameson could hear her voice rising, sharp and professional. When she returned, her face was carefully neutral. That was my supervisor. Nathaniel Ashford has filed a formal complaint alleging that Mrs. Rodriguez may not be a suitable guardian due to... She paused, clearly angry. Due to financial instability and lack of formal education. Mrs. Rodriguez flinched, like she'd been slapped. That's garbage, Jameson said, his voice hard. Mrs. Rodriguez has taken care of us for years. She knew us when we had nothing. She's not trying to take advantage. I know that. My supervisor knows that. But the complaint has to be investigated. It's protocol. Rebecca's jaw was tight. I'll personally handle the investigation, and I'll make sure it's resolved quickly. But in the meantime, we need to be prepared for scrutiny. What does that mean? Jameson asked. It means people will ask questions. Look at your finances, your living situation, your school records. They'll interview you. Interview Mrs. Rodriguez. Make sure everything is above board. Rebecca's voice softened. I know it feels invasive, but we'll get through it. Jonathan stood. There's someone else who might be able to help. Someone who knew your mother and has experience with situations like this. Who? A lawyer named Sarah Chen. She specializes in trust law and protecting minors from exactly this kind of harassment. Your mother actually consulted with her when setting up the trust. Jonathan pulled out a business card. She's expecting my call. With your permission, I'd like to bring her in. Jameson looked at the card. Sarah Chen, attorney at law. Another stranger. Another person who'd know their business, their pain, their circumstances. But Jonathan trusted her. And right now, Jonathan was the only adult besides Mrs. Rodriguez who'd proven himself. Okay, Jameson said. I'll set up a meeting for tomorrow. Jonathan hesitated. There's something else. Something I need to tell you about your mother. Jameson's stomach dropped. What? When Elena came to see me, she told me something she hadn't included in her letters. Something she thought you should hear from someone else, not read in her handwriting. Jonathan sat back down, choosing his words carefully. She wanted you to know that none of this was luck. The life insurance policy, the amount it grew to, that wasn't an accident. What do you mean? Your mother researched everything. She studied how life insurance policies worked, how investments grew, how to structure trusts for maximum benefit. She spent years learning about finance and law, all while working multiple jobs and raising 2 children. Jonathan's voice was thick with admiration. She taught herself, Jameson. Online courses from the library computer, books she checked out and read during her lunch breaks. She became an expert in estate planning without anyone knowing. Mrs. Rodriguez covered her mouth with her hand. I saw her at the library sometimes, late at night after her shifts. I thought she was just reading to relax. She was building a future, Jonathan said. Every decision she made was calculated. The specific type of policy she chose, the way she structured the trust, the protection she built in, all of it showed sophisticated understanding of financial systems. But she cleaned toilets for a living, Jameson whispered. People like Nathaniel thought she was stupid. People like Nathaniel measure intelligence by degrees and bank accounts. They can't conceive that someone without formal education could outsmart them. Jonathan smiled slightly. Your mother was smarter than half the financial advisors I work with. She just never got the chance to prove it in ways the world recognizes. Grace tugged on Jameson's sleeve. Mama was smart? The smartest, Jameson said, his throat tight. She just didn't have opportunities to show everyone. A sharp knock on the door interrupted them, different from Jonathan's polite tap. Aggressive, demanding. Rebecca went to the door, checking the peephole. Her expression hardened. There are 2 men out here claiming to be from Child Protective Services, but they're not from my office. Don't open it, Jonathan said quickly, already pulling out his phone. We have a legal right to enter, a voice called through the door. We're conducting a welfare check based on a credible complaint of child endangerment. Child endangerment? Jameson felt panic rising in his chest. We're not endangered. We're fine. Rebecca pressed her ear to the door, listening. They're saying they have authorization to remove the children pending investigation. They absolutely do not, Jonathan said, phone to his ear. Sarah, it's Jonathan Matthews. We have a situation. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. Grace grabbed Jameson's hand, her small fingers trembling. Mrs. Rodriguez pulled them both close, her body a shield. This is harassment, Rebecca called through the door. I'm the assigned social worker on this case. Any welfare check goes through my office. Identify yourselves properly, or leave immediately. We don't answer to you. The voice was cold, professional. We answer to the court order signed this morning. What court order? Rebecca demanded. A paper slid under the door. Rebecca picked it up, her face going pale as she read. This is signed by Judge Morrison. He's known for being friendly with certain banking interests. Nathaniel, Jameson said. The name tasted like poison. He moved fast, Jonathan said grimly, still on the phone. Sarah, how quickly can you get here? They have a court order. Through the phone, Jameson heard a woman's voice, rapid and authoritative. Jonathan listened, nodding. She says don't open the door. She's filing an emergency motion to block the order. She'll be here in 20 minutes with a counter-order. Jonathan looked at Rebecca. Can you stall them? I can try. Rebecca straightened her shoulders and opened the door a crack, keeping the chain lock engaged. I need to verify this order's authenticity. I'm calling my supervisor and the family court clerk. If this is legitimate, I'll comply fully. But I'm not releasing children into unknown custody without proper verification. You're obstructing justice, one of the men said. He was in his 40s, wearing a cheap suit, with eyes that didn't match his official tone. "I'm following protocol. You can wait in the hallway while I make my calls, or you can leave and come back with proper law enforcement escort." Rebecca's voice was steel. "Those are your options." The men exchanged glances. The second one, younger, uncomfortable looking, shifted his weight. "Maybe we should call the office. Verify the procedure." "We don't need to verify anything," the first man snapped. "The order is clear." "Then you won't mind waiting while I confirm it," Rebecca said sweetly. "I'm sure Judge Morrison will be happy to speak with me directly to confirm he signed this order on a Sunday morning." The first man's face twitched. Sunday. Courts didn't issue emergency orders on Sunday unless it was life or death. "This order is fraudulent," Rebecca said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "And I'm betting you know it. The question is who paid you to come here and intimidate these children?" "You're making serious accusations," the first man said, but he was backing up. "And I'm prepared to make them in front of the police, who I've already called." Rebecca pulled out her phone, showing a call in progress. "They'll be here in 5 minutes. You're welcome to explain to them why you're attempting to remove children from protective custody using a forged court order." The two men looked at each other. The younger one was already moving toward the elevator. The older one held his ground for another moment, then followed. "This isn't over," he called back. "You're right," Rebecca said, "because I'm going to make sure you're prosecuted for attempted kidnapping." The elevator doors closed. Rebecca shut the apartment door, engaged every lock, and then leaned against it, shaking. "Are you okay?" Jonathan asked. "I'm furious." Rebecca's hands were trembling. In 10 years of social work, I've never seen anything like that. Someone actually forged a court order and hired fake investigators to try to abduct children. "Nathaniel wouldn't go that far," Jonathan said, but he didn't sound certain. "Would he?" "Maybe not directly," Rebecca said, "but he's rich enough to hire people who would, and desperate enough to try anything to save his reputation." Grace was crying quietly into Mrs. Rodriguez's shoulder. Jameson felt numb. This was what money meant? This was what his mother's sacrifice had bought? People trying to take them away? To separate them? To use them as pawns in some banker's pride war? "I don't want the money," Jameson said suddenly. "If this is what it costs, people coming after us, trying to take Grace, I don't want it." "That's not how it works, mijo," Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. "The money is yours. It's your future. We can't let bad people scare us away from what your mother worked for." "But your mother faced worse than this," Mrs. Rodriguez interrupted. "You think she didn't face people who tried to intimidate her, who told her she was worthless, that she'd never amount to anything, that her children would end up just like her?" Her voice grew fierce. "She kept fighting. She kept working. She kept saving. And she won." "She beat all of them by building something they couldn't tear down." "Mrs. Rodriguez is right," Jonathan said. "The trust is ironclad. Nathaniel can't touch it. He can make things difficult, but he can't take what's yours." A phone rang. Jonathan answered, listened, and his face transformed into something like a smile. "Sarah's on her way up. She has actual police with her, and a real court order. One that bars anyone except approved personnel from attempting to remove you from Mrs. Rodriguez's care." "How did she get that so fast?" Rebecca asked. "Because she's been preparing for exactly this scenario since your mother first came to see her," Jonathan said. "Elena knew there might be challenges. She planned for them." Jameson thought about his mother, studying law books in the library, learning about trusts and guardianship and protection, planning for threats she hoped would never materialize but prepared for anyway, always protecting them, even from the grave. The door opened, properly this time, with Rebecca checking and Jonathan confirming, and a woman in her 30s entered. Asian features, sharp business suit, carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than the fake investigators' entire wardrobes. 2 police officers flanked her. "Sarah Chen," she said, extending a hand to Jameson. "Your mother was a remarkable woman. I'm honored to protect her legacy." She turned to the police officers. "These are the children targeted in the attempted abduction. I want statements from everyone, and I want the security footage from the hallway. Those men need to be identified and arrested." "Already on it, ma'am," one officer said. Sarah sat down, opening her briefcase. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm filing charges against whoever hired those men. I'm also filing a restraining order against Nathaniel Ashford, barring him from any contact with Jameson or Grace. And I'm requesting a full investigation into his conduct at Sterling and Ashford Bank. Can you do all that? Jameson asked. Sarah's smile was sharp. Your mother paid me a retainer specifically for situations like this. She wanted to make sure no one could use their wealth or connections to hurt her children. I'm very good at my job, Jameson, and I don't lose. She pulled out documents, spreading them across the coffee table. Your mother included a clause in the trust. If anyone attempts to interfere with your guardianship or access to funds through illegal means, the trust automatically files suit and funds the prosecution. She wanted you protected by the best lawyers money can buy. She thought of everything, Mrs. Rodriguez whispered. Not everything, Sarah said. But she tried. She spent months with me, going over scenarios, building protections, making sure that her children would be safe from people who might see them as targets. Jameson looked at all these adults, Jonathan, Rebecca, Mrs. Rodriguez, Sarah, even the police officers, all here because his mother had planned for their presence, all part of a safety net woven years ago by a woman who'd never had safety herself. What happens now? Jameson asked. Now we fight back, Sarah said simply. We show Nathaniel Ashford and anyone else who thinks they can intimidate children that they picked the wrong family to mess with. Grace lifted her head from Mrs. Rodriguez's shoulder. Is Mama watching? The question stopped everyone cold. Yes, mija, Mrs. Rodriguez said softly. She's watching, and she's proud. Good, Grace said, with the absolute certainty only children possess. Because we're going to win. Mama always wins. Jameson pulled his sister close, feeling something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. His mother had fought for them in life, and even in death, her love was still fighting, still protecting, still winning battles they didn't even know they were facing. Nathaniel Ashford had made a mistake. He'd seen two poor kids and thought they were easy targets. He hadn't accounted for their mother, and that was going to cost him everything. The courthouse felt like another world entirely. Marble columns, high ceilings, the weight of justice hanging in the air like incense. Jameson had never been inside a courtroom before. He'd seen them on TV, but television didn't capture the way your stomach twisted when you walked through those heavy doors. Sarah Chen walked beside him, her heels clicking with confident purpose against the polished floor. Remember what we discussed. Answer only what's asked. Don't let them provoke you. And if you need a break, just look at me. I'll be fine, Jameson said, trying to sound more certain than he felt. I know you will. Sarah squeezed his shoulder gently. Your mother prepared you for this without even knowing it. Everything she taught you about standing tall when people try to make you feel small, that's what today is about. Grace was waiting outside with Mrs. Rodriguez and Rebecca. The judge had ruled that only Jameson needed to testify. Grace was too young, and her testimony wouldn't be necessary. Jameson was grateful for that. Grace didn't need to see what was about to happen. The courtroom was already half full. Jameson recognized some faces from the bank. The cream suit woman, the elderly man's son, others who'd watched his humiliation that first day. They'd been subpoenaed as witnesses. Jonathan sat in the front row, looking grim but supportive. And there, across the aisle, sat Nathaniel Ashford. He looked different than he had in the bank. Smaller somehow, despite his expensive suit and perfect hair. His lawyer, a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes, whispered something to him. Nathaniel nodded, but his face was tight, strained. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Brennan. Everyone stood. The judge entered. A black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she suffered no nonsense. She settled into her seat, surveying the room with the kind of attention that made everyone sit a little straighter. Please be seated. Her voice carried authority without volume. We're here today regarding the emergency petition filed by Sarah Chen on behalf of Jameson and Grace Rodriguez, minors, alleging harassment and attempted interference with a legal guardianship. We're also addressing the counterclaims filed by Nathaniel Ashford alleging fraud and the exploitation of minors. Let's be clear from the start. I've reviewed all the documentation.
The trust established by Elena Rodriguez is completely legitimate. What we're determining today is whether Mr. Ashford's actions constitute harassment and what, if any, consequences should follow. Nathaniel's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client's concerns were entirely reasonable, given the unusual circumstances. Sit down, Mr. Harrison. You'll have your turn. Judge Brennan looked at Sarah. Ms.
Chen, Call your first witness. I called Jonathan Matthews to the stand. Jonathan walked to the witness box, was sworn in, and settled into the chair with quiet dignity. Sarah approached him with careful, measured steps. Mr. Matthews, how long have you worked at Sterling and Ashford Private Banking? 32 years. And what is your current position? Senior Vice President of Client Services. In those 32 years, how many accounts have you personally helped establish? Jonathan thought for a moment. Thousands. I don't have an exact count. Have you ever seen anything suspicious or fraudulent in the account established by Elena Rodriguez for her children? No, absolutely not. Please describe the day Mrs. Rodriguez came to see you. Jonathan's expression softened. She arrived early in the morning, before the bank officially opened. She'd called ahead, and I'd agreed to meet with her. When I found her waiting outside, she apologized for bothering me. She had a folder with her, everything meticulously organized. Birth certificates, medical records, insurance policy documentation, tax forms, everything color-coded and labeled. What was your impression of her? That she was one of the most prepared clients I'd ever met. She knew exactly what she wanted, had researched every aspect of trust law and estate planning. She asked intelligent questions about tax implications, growth projections, protection clauses. This wasn't someone operating on impulse or emotion. This was careful, deliberate planning. Did she explain the source of the funds? Yes. A life insurance policy she'd been paying into for over a decade. I verified everything with the insurance company. The policy was completely legitimate, all premiums paid on time, all documentation in order. How did she seem emotionally? Jonathan's voice grew thick. She was dying. She knew it, accepted it, but you could see the grief wasn't for herself. It was for her children. She cried when she talked about not being able to see them grow up, but she was also determined. She said she couldn't control how long she lived, but she could control what she left behind. Across the room, someone sniffled. The cream-suit woman was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Did she ever express any illegal intent or ask you to help her hide money? Never. Everything was transparent. She wanted the trust structured to protect her children from anyone who might try to exploit them. She was very specific about that. She said people would see them as targets because of their poverty, and she wanted protections in place. She predicted this, Sarah said quietly. She predicted that someone might try to use her children's vulnerability against them. Objection, Nathaniel's lawyer said. Leading the witness. Sustained, Judge Brennan said. Rephrase, Miss Chen. Did Mrs. Rodriguez express concerns about potential threats to her children after her death? Yes. She asked me to recommend a lawyer who specialized in protecting minors. I referred her to Ms. Chen. She spent considerable time and money ensuring legal protections were in place. Sarah nodded. No further questions. Nathaniel's lawyer approached Jonathan like a shark circling prey. Mr. Matthews, isn't it true that you have a history of disagreements with my client? We've had professional differences, yes, including disputes over his management style and business decisions. Yes. So you might be biased against him? Jonathan's eyes were steady. My testimony is about Elena Rodriguez and her children. My personal feelings about Mr. Ashford are irrelevant to the facts. But you did contradict him in front of clients the day this child entered the bank, didn't you? You embarrassed him publicly. I intervened when I saw a client being mistreated. That's my job. The lawyer smiled coldly. Or perhaps you saw an opportunity to undermine your colleague using a sympathetic situation. Objection. Sarah was on her feet. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained. Mr. Harrison, ask questions or sit down. The lawyer asked a few more questions, trying to establish bias, but Jonathan remained calm and factual. When he stepped down, Sarah called her next witness. I call Amanda Price to the stand. The cream-suit woman from the bank looked startled. She walked to the witness box, was sworn in, and sat down, clearly uncomfortable. Ms. Price, you were present in the bank lobby the day Jameson Rodriguez came to check his account balance. Yes? Please describe what you witnessed. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. The boy came in. He looked poor, dirty. Mr. Ashford questioned him about why he was there. Can you be more specific about Mr. Ashford's questioning? Amanda's face flushed. He was harsh. He called the boy street children. He implied the boy's mother was a criminal, or that the boy had stolen the bank card. He mocked him. Did anyone try to stop this? Not at first. We all watched. Did you participate? I laughed, Amanda whispered. I made comments to the woman next to me about how he must be homeless or begging. I took pleasure in it. Her voice broke. I'm not proud of that. What changed? When the account balance came up. $63 million. And Mr. Ashford's face, he looked like he'd been slapped. Then Mr. Matthews intervened and took the boy upstairs. And we all just sat there, realizing we'd been terrible to a child who'd done nothing wrong except be poor. Has this affected you? Amanda's tears were flowing freely now. I haven't slept properly since that day. I keep seeing that boy's face when we were laughing at him. He looked so scared, so alone, and we made it worse. We made everything worse because we judged him based on his appearance. Thank you, Ms. Price. No further questions. Nathaniel's lawyer declined to cross-examine. The testimony was too damaging, and anything he asked would only make it worse. Sarah called 2 more witnesses from the bank, both telling similar stories. Each one painted a picture of deliberate, cruel humiliation orchestrated by Nathaniel Ashford. Then Sarah stood and said the words Jameson had been dreading. I call Jameson Rodriguez to the stand. The walk to the witness box felt endless. Every eye in the courtroom followed him. He was sworn in, his voice barely above a whisper as he promised to tell the truth. Sarah approached him with gentle confidence. Jameson, I know this is difficult. Take your time. Can you tell the court why you went to the bank that day? We were being evicted. We didn't have food. My sister asked me if we'd have dinner, and I didn't know what to tell her. Jameson's voice was quiet but steady. My mom had left me a card months before, when she died. She told me to use it when I needed to. That day, I needed to. What happened when you entered the bank? Everyone stared at me. Like I didn't belong there. Like I was dirty or dangerous. Jameson looked at Amanda Price, who was crying openly. A woman said I was probably homeless. Another person said I probably found the card in the trash. They took pictures of me. How did that make you feel? Small. Like I was nothing. Like my mom had been nothing. Jameson's hands clenched in his lap. Mr. Ashford said my mom knew her place. That she understood what she was. Like being poor meant we were worth less than other people. Judge Brennan's expression had hardened. She was taking notes, her pen moving rapidly across her legal pad. Did Mr. Ashford threaten you? He said I'd stolen the card, that my mom must have been a criminal. He called security to remove me. He wanted everyone to see me get thrown out. Jameson's voice grew stronger. But my mom wasn't a criminal. She was the best person I ever knew. She worked herself to death so Grace and I would be okay. Jameson, after that day at the bank, did Mr. Ashford's actions affect your life? People came to our apartment pretending to be from child services. They had a fake court order. They tried to take me and Grace away from Mrs. Rodriguez. They said we were being exploited. Jameson looked directly at Nathaniel. We weren't being exploited. We were being protected. My mom made sure of it. Sarah paused, letting the testimony sink in. One final question. What do you want from this hearing? Jameson thought about his mother's letter, about her instructions to stay kind, to not let money make him hard or cruel. I want Mr. Ashford to leave us alone, Jameson said simply. I want him to understand that just because someone is poor doesn't mean they're stupid or criminal or worthless. My mom was smarter than most people ever knew. She taught herself about law and finance and trust management because she wanted to protect us. She was amazing. And people like Mr. Ashford never saw it because they never looked past her cleaning uniform. The courtroom was silent. Thank you, Jameson. Sarah returned to her seat. Nathaniel's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Mr. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you've been coached on what to say today? Objection! Sarah was on her feet. Counsel is accusing the witness of perjury without basis. I'll allow the question, Judge Brennan said. But tread carefully, Mr. Harrison. Have you been told what to say? The lawyer pressed. Ms. Chen told me to tell the truth, Jameson said. That's what I'm doing. You're 10 years old. Surely you don't understand all the complexities of this situation. I understand that Mr. Ashford tried to humiliate me because he thought I was poor and powerless. I understand that when he found out I wasn't powerless, he tried to hurt me anyway. I understand that my mom spent years protecting me from people exactly like him. Jameson's voice was clear and strong. I'm 10, but I'm not stupid. Several people in the courtroom gasped. Judge Brennan's lips twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. The lawyer tried a few more questions, but Jameson answered each one with calm honesty. When he was finally allowed to step down, he walked back to his seat feeling lighter. He'd told the truth. Whatever happened now was out of his hands. Judge Brennan called for a brief recess. Sarah, Jonathan, and Jameson stepped into the hallway where Mrs. Rodriguez and Grace were waiting. Grace ran to him immediately. "How did it go? Were you brave?" "He was incredible," Sarah said. "Absolutely incredible." Mrs. Rodriguez pulled him into a hug. "Your mother would be so proud." When they returned to the courtroom, Judge Brennan's expression was stern. "I've reviewed all the evidence and heard the testimony. Here is my ruling." The courtroom held its breath. First, regarding the trust established by Elena Rodriguez, it is completely legitimate and will remain in force with no modifications. The guardianship of Mrs. Rodriguez is approved and will be legally formalized immediately. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed Jameson's hand. Second, regarding Mr. Ashford's conduct, I find his actions toward a minor client to constitute harassment, abuse of position, and reckless endangerment. While I cannot directly punish him in this hearing, I am forwarding my findings to the State Banking Commission with a recommendation for license review. Nathaniel went pale. Third, regarding the attempted removal of the children, I am ordering a full investigation into who hired those men and what instructions they were given. If the trail leads to anyone in this courtroom, they will face criminal prosecution. Judge Brennan leaned forward. Mr. Ashford, you are hereby ordered to have no contact with Jameson Rodriguez, Grace Rodriguez, or their guardian. You are not to approach them, contact them, or make any further inquiries into their financial affairs. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest and contempt charges. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Nathaniel said, his voice hollow. Furthermore, I want to say something for the record. Judge Brennan removed her glasses, looking directly at Nathaniel. I've been a judge for 20 years. I've seen wealth used as a weapon, poverty used as an excuse, and power wielded without wisdom. What I witnessed in the testimony today was a man who judged a child based on his appearance, and then, when proven wrong, used his considerable resources to punish that child for embarrassing him. She paused, letting the words sink in. Elena Rodriguez worked multiple jobs, educated herself, and built a financial fortress to protect her children from people exactly like you, Mr. Ashford. She succeeded. And the greatest irony is that in death, a cleaning woman you never noticed has proven herself more intelligent, more strategic, and more worthy of respect than you have in your entire career. Nathaniel looked like he wanted to disappear. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell with a sound like thunder. Outside the courthouse, camera crews and reporters waited. Sarah had anticipated this. Stay behind me. Don't answer any questions. Just keep walking. But as they pushed through the crowd, one reporter's question cut through the noise. Jameson, what would you say to your mother if she could hear you now? Jameson stopped. Sarah started to pull him forward, but he gently removed her hand. He turned to face the cameras, and Grace slipped her hand into his. I'd tell her she was right, Jameson said, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. She said people would judge us. She said they'd try to use our poverty against us. She said we'd need to be strong and kind, even when others weren't kind to us. He looked directly into the nearest camera. She was right about everything, and I'm going to make her proud, not by being rich, but by being the person she raised me to be. Grace tugged on his sleeve. Jameson, what did Mama raise us to be? Jameson smiled down at his sister, the first real smile he'd managed since his mother died. Kind, Gracie, even when the world isn't kind to us, especially then. The reporters went silent. Even the camera operators seemed to soften. Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward, putting her arms around both children. That's enough. These children have been through enough for one day. As they walked away, Jameson heard one reporter say to another, That kid is going to do something important someday. You can just tell. In the car on the way home, Grace fell asleep against Mrs. Rodriguez's shoulder. Jonathan sat in front with Sarah, discussing next steps, legal protections, banking protocols. Jameson stared out the window at the city passing by. The same city where his mother had cleaned buildings and raised children and built an empire in secret. The same city that had looked right through her for years without seeing how extraordinary she was. He pulled out his mother's letter from his pocket. He'd carried it with him every day since reading it. The paper was worn now from being folded and unfolded, but the words were still clear. Be brave, be strong, be the man I always knew you would become. I will, Mama, Jameson whispered to the glass. I promise. And somewhere, in whatever place mothers go when they leave their children too soon, Elena Rodriguez smiled. The school auditorium was packed. Cameras lined the back wall, parents filled every seat, and Jameson stood backstage with sweating palms and a racing heart. You're going to do great, Mrs. Rodriguez said, adjusting his collar. A year had passed since the courthouse, and time had softened some edges while sharpening others. Grace sat beside him, swinging her legs. Mama's watching. She's always watching. I know, Gracie. The year had brought changes. Their apartment overlooking Central Park had become home. Mrs. Rodriguez's cooking filling the kitchen, Grace's artwork covering the walls, laughter replacing the silence that money alone could never fix. Grace attended a school where she had real friends. Jameson had discovered a love for mathematics and chess. But grief didn't disappear with comfort. Therapy helped. Dr. Patricia teaching them that healing wasn't forgetting, but learning to carry loss differently. The bank had quietly asked Nathaniel Ashford to resign. The investigation revealed years of mistreatment, discrimination, abuse of power. He'd left banking entirely. Jameson tried not to take satisfaction in that. Tried to remember his mother's words about staying kind. Jonathan had been promoted to managing director. His first act, new training programs focused on dignity and respect. The lobby where Jameson had been humiliated now featured a plaque. Banking is a service, not a judgment. Everyone deserves respect. Sarah Chen had become family, not just their lawyer, but chosen family. Rebecca Martinez visited monthly, officially checking on them, unofficially becoming another aunt. Their constellation of love had expanded beyond blood. But today was different. Today was about promise. Principal Davidson appeared. We're ready, Jameson. Grace squeezed his hand. Speak from your heart, mijo. The truth doesn't need decoration. Their mother's words, preserved in a 6-year-old's perfect memory. The auditorium quieted as Jameson walked onto the stage. The microphone squealed feedback. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. He looked out at the faces, classmates, teachers, strangers drawn by the viral story. Poor kid inherits millions. Banker humiliates child. Mother's love defeats cruelty. But this wasn't about headlines. My name is Jameson Rodriguez, he began, voice steadier than expected. Most of you know my story from the news. But there's a part most people don't know. The most important part. In the front row, Mrs. Rodriguez dabbed her eyes. Grace gave him a thumbs up. My mother's name was Elena Rodriguez. She cleaned offices. She worked while we slept, before we woke. Double shifts when bills were due. She wore the same clothes for years because buying new ones meant less food for me and my sister. The room fell silent. People looked right through her. To the clients in those buildings, she was invisible. Just another cleaning lady. Nobody important. Jameson's voice strengthened. But my mother was brilliant. While she cleaned, she studied. While she worked, she planned. While everyone judged her uniform and her accent, she was building a future that would outlast her death. He pulled out his mother's letter, worn soft from being carried everywhere. She wrote me before she died. The most important thing she said was, money doesn't make you better than anyone else. It's what you do with it that matters. Jameson looked directly at the cameras. For the past year, I've been trying to figure out what that means. How do I honor my mother's sacrifice? He took a deep breath. Today, I'm announcing the Elena Rodriguez Foundation. It will provide college scholarships for low-income students. Financial assistance for families with medical debt. Support for adult education programs. For people like my mother who want to learn but can't afford traditional schooling. Applause started, but Jameson raised his hand. The foundation will also do something else. Every year, we'll honor one person who embodies what my mother stood for. Someone who works hard, shows kindness, sacrifices without recognition. We'll call it the Invisible Heroes Award. His voice cracked. Because my mother taught me that the most important people are often the ones nobody notices. The cleaning crews working while we sleep. The grocery workers who remember your name. The bus drivers who wait for running kids. The neighbors who check on you when they hear crying through thin walls. Mrs. Rodriguez was crying openly now. So were others. The foundation starts with $10 million. Every year, 5% of returns go to new programs. My advisors say if we manage it right, it'll exist forever, long after I'm gone. My mother's love. Still working, still helping, still protecting people who need it. Jameson looked at the letter one more time. Before I finish, I want to say something to anyone watching who's struggling right now. Anyone who feels invisible. Anyone working multiple jobs and still can't make ends meet. Anyone judged by their clothes or address or accent. He leaned closer to the microphone. You matter. Your work matters. Your sacrifices matter. Even if nobody sees it, you are doing something important. You are surviving in a system designed to make survival difficult. And that takes strength most people will never understand. Tears streamed down his face. My mother cleaned toilets. People like Nathaniel Ashford looked right through her, never imagining she was smarter and stronger than they would ever be. She proved them wrong. And every person out there working hard, fighting for your children, sacrificing in ways nobody sees, you're proving them wrong too. Applause built like a wave. People stood. Jonathan was in the back, crying. Sarah beside him. Professional composure finally cracked. Jameson held up his hand one final time. I used to think my mother's gift was the money. $63 million. An amount I still can't comprehend. But I was wrong. His voice dropped to a whisper that the microphone carried everywhere. Her gift was showing me that love is stronger than poverty. That kindness is more powerful than cruelty. That a mother's sacrifice can change the world even after she's gone. He looked at Grace. She taught me that who you are matters more than what you have. That dignity isn't something money can buy or poverty can take away. That the measure of a person isn't their bank account, but their heart. Jameson folded the letter carefully, placing it back in his pocket. So today, I'm making a promise. To my mother, wherever she is. To my sister. To everyone struggling and fighting in the shadows. He straightened his shoulders. I promise to use this money not just for myself, but for others. I promise to stay kind even when the world isn't kind to me. I promise to see people, really see them, the way most people never saw my mother. I promise to remember where I came from and help others climb up from those same places. His voice grew stronger. I promise to make my mother's sacrifice mean something, not just in dollars and trust funds, but in lives changed, in dignity restored, in invisible people finally being seen. The auditorium erupted. People were on their feet, moved by something deeper than a story about money. This was about redemption, justice, love transcending death. Grace ran onto the stage and threw herself into his arms. Mrs. Rodriguez followed, embracing them both. For a moment, Jameson swore he felt it, his mother's presence, her pride, her love wrapping around them. Later, after reporters left and crowds dispersed, Jameson stood alone in the school garden. Quiet, peaceful, a good place to think. He pulled out his mother's letter again, reading memorized words he still needed to see. Be brave. Be strong. Be the man I always knew you would become. I'm trying, Mama, he whispered to the evening air. A hand touched his shoulder. Jonathan stood there, eyes red but smiling. She knows Jameson. Wherever she is, she knows. You think so? I know so. Because I saw what you did today. That wasn't a speech. That was a promise. And promises like that, they echo. They change things. Jameson looked up at the darkening sky, at emerging stars. Somewhere up there, his mother was watching. He believed that. Had to believe it. Mr. Matthews, thank you for believing her when nobody else did, for helping us when you didn't have to. Jonathan's smile was gentle. Your mother made that easy. She was remarkable. And you're going to be just as remarkable, maybe more. I just want to make her proud. You already have. They stood together as the sun set over the city. The same city where Elena Rodriguez had worked and sacrificed and died. The same city that had looked through her without seeing her brilliance. But it would remember her now. Every scholarship granted, every family helped, every invisible hero recognized, all carrying her name, proclaiming to the world that she had mattered, that she had changed everything. Inside the school, Grace's laughter rang out. Mrs. Rodriguez called them for dinner. Sarah's car pulled up. Rebecca waved from the entrance. This was family, not bound by blood, but by choice, by love, by determination to honor a woman who'd given everything. Jameson touched the letter in his pocket one final time. I love you, Mama, and I promise I'll spend my life proving you didn't sacrifice for nothing. The wind picked up, rustling through trees, and Jameson smiled, because for just a moment it felt like an answer, like approval. Like his mother's voice whispering what she'd always said, I believe in you, mijo. I always have. And in the gathering darkness, as stars emerged one by one above the city, a cleaning woman's love continued to shine, brighter than any fortune, stronger than any cruelty, eternal as the promise her son had made to honor her memory by changing the world, one act of kindness at a time.